Hey, I'm Al Corlin. Thanks very much for joining me. We are in Vancouver, British Columbia, attending the Cambridge House International Investment Conference. What a winner. I'll tell you, for anybody who attended this year, I know you got an awful lot out of it because I certainly did. We're shooting some video up here, and I have the sincere privilege right now of having included in this video one of my best friends in the business, and that's Peter Grandich. Peter is really, really an interesting man. Very, very bright, very astute. Peter has a great website. He has in the past and continues to make some absolutely miraculous calls in terms of the investment world, for lack of better terms. Pete's a good guy, and I'm glad to call him my friend. Another gentleman who's with me right now is also a good friend of mine. Haven't known him as long as I've known Peter, but I've known him for some time, Randy Turner. Randy is the president of a company called SilverQuest. SilverQuest is very, very active both in British Columbia and in the Yukon. Huge land position in the Yukon, if I'm not mistaken, probably the second or third or fourth largest up there. Very active up there. It's going to be a busy year for them. And what Peter and I are going to do right now, both Peter and I follow SilverQuest. I on the radio show and Peter in his work. We're going to kind of grill Randy right here and find out exactly what is going on with SilverQuest. Pete, before we start though, let's do this. Randy, let's talk a little bit about the Yukon. What's going on up there? Why it's such an exciting area of play?
Okay, well, a couple of years ago, there was a major discovery that was made by a company called Underworld. And this is really has sort of set the stage for us that have followed. And Underworld was taken out by Kinross on March last year for $160 million. About a 1 million ounce gold deposit, and all of a sudden there was the second largest staking rush in Canadian history. So we happen to be up there at the early days, and as you said, I think we are the third or fourth largest landowner in it.
Right.
And this is up against the Alaska border, so it's an area which was known back in the 1890s in the Klondike Gold Rush. Now we're looking for the source of the gold.
Pete, what got you interested in SilverQuest?
Well, actually, I was introduced to Randy through another client of mine, Mark Morabito. And Randy was brought in because the previous management at SilverQuest, didn't achieve goals. And it was amazing what Randy was able to do. He first put the company, like you said, smack in the middle of the greatest rush, I think, in the last 2 decades we've seen in the juniors. But at the same time, saw some significant assets that the company has that wasn't being maximized. He did it. I'll allow him to explain that. And he did that in 12 months. And, one of the best things I can say about Randy, besides all our joking about hockey, is, and this he's most deserving of, is for all of us that say management is the absolute key to the juniors,
Absolutely,
Randy Turner is the absolute first example I would use to that, because here was a company that had floundered, it had faltered, and in a matter of 12 months he's made it perhaps one of the best performing and certainly one of the most sought after junior resource companies right now.
Randy, a couple of things that I want to stress here, or actually I'd like you to stress, is, when people are looking at companies, I had a guy on the show last week, a professor down at the University of Missouri, and he came on the program because he wanted to talk about what the laymen, what they look for in terms of low-price stocks. And he, it could have been either myself talking or Peter talking. The first two things that this gentleman mentioned were, number one, he said, I look at management, and I want you to elaborate on that a little bit for me. But then he said, let's forget about the asset just for a second, the asset in the ground. But he said, capital is very, very important to me. You guys are set in all three areas.
Yeah, I think when you start off with a junior, management is really important. People who've got experience, not only as perhaps geologists or engineers, but people who know the business and people who have been around. And myself have been in the business for 40 years. So, and the board of directors that we have, they've all been involved in major mining discoveries around the world. So to me, that's number one. And you can build from there. So if you've got the management, you've got this sort of expertise, you can go out and perhaps find those or develop those sort of key assets.
But as Peter mentioned, talking about capital just for a second, a couple, 3 years ago, SilverQuest, I would have to assume, before you got involved, the company was probably pretty short of money.
It was broke.
Not anymore.
No, it was dead broke, and now we got about $8 million in the treasury. And at the time, it actually traded down as low as 2.5 cents Canadian. So it certainly has gone a long way from there.
Yeah, the key, I think what Randy just said is it's important to be geologists and mining people, but I've watched great mining geologist companies ruin companies because they don't understand the public side of the market. Then I watched people that were very good in the public side, but they had no real understanding of mining, and they
Right.
screwed up projects. So I think you have
Exactly.
to have both of it.
Yeah, there's a fine balance in there. I think of understanding the capital markets as well as understanding the product that you have, because we've seen geologists in the past who have fallen in love with their product, and
nothing happens.
and nothing's ever
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's interesting.
Randy, the Yukon obviously is an important part of the company, and it would be more of the sizzle of the company. But one of the great things that you saw and recognized was a key asset of yours, the Davidson, and you were smart enough, I think that's the only way to describe it, to restructure a joint venture agreement just before your partner received a takeout offer, and that's what's brought a lot of interest. Tell us a little bit about, because that's really the key asset at the time. Tell us about the Davidson, what it was, what you turned it into, and what's happening now.
Well, the Davidson was a gold prospect that was actually discovered back in the 70s. We farmed it out to a company called Richfield Ventures a couple of years ago. They spent a lot of money on it. And then back in April 4th, New Gold, which is a $5.5 billion corporation, took them out for $550 million. So all of a sudden it sort of put a value on our 25% interest in this. And the market would say right now that there's potentially these 6.5 million ounces there based on the market cap of what they were taken out at. So in a very short period of time, it's added a lot of value to our company, and I think has given a great exposure to the company too, to a brand new gold district within central BC.
I think the thing that's important for people to realize here is basically SilverQuest retained a 25% interest in that deal. Now, when you have a multi-billion-dollar company coming in and they only have 75%, and a company like SilverQuest has 25%, that's saying something.
Well, I think what also is the market is speculating on, and I think rightfully so, is, and Randy can add his own 2 cents, but companies like that are going to want to have 100% of it. They just completed the acquisition a few days ago. So one of the reasons I think SilverQuest stock has been very strong of late, Ran, is the expectation that they need to, and it's not that hard to put a number on it.
Yeah.
And Randy may not be able to, because I don't know if he can, but anywhere from $50 to $100 million, I think, is a fair estimate of what that could be worth. And you're talking about the almost at the upper end, the entire market cap of SilverQuest. So you get all its other projects, which I think he'll expand on, for nothing. And that's so unusual in our business to have a play like that.
Completely. Randy, we're kind of running out of time here, but what I'd like to do is number one, we stressed the Davidson situation, which is very, very important. I want to get back to the Yukon, though, because it's probably the most active area in the world right now in terms of exploration activity. What exactly are you and your staff going to be doing up there for the next few months?
Well, we actually moved into the field this past week. We're spending a minimum $5 million, doing 15,000 meters of drilling, 20,000 samples. So exploration's underway. We are exploring in an area called the Boulevard, which is adjacent to Kaminak's new gold discovery of last summer. Very active in an area called Prospector Mountain, where we've got some very significant gold, silver, copper results from a couple of years ago. And exploration's underway. There is 140 companies that are up there exploring. There's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars spent this summer. And you can really look forward to results between now and September, is when companies are out there and going to be very active. So we're out there, and we're looking forward to some great results coming.
Randy, real quick, a lot of those companies are really only doing their first or second year exploration. So one of the advantages that SilverQuest is going to happen is you'll be doing a significant amount of drilling, where a lot of companies up there won't even be drilling. They'll just be sampling this year and all. So there is kind of a two-tier type of group up there right now up in the Yukon. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, we've been up there now for 2 years. So we've advanced a lot of those projects to the drill stage. Like I said, 15,000 meters of drilling. And a lot of the sort of second-tier companies, they are just doing initial exploration. So you won't see those companies doing serious drilling until next year.
Okay, there you have it. Quest Resources, Randy Turner. If you want more information on this company, you can either check out Peter's work, or on our website you can click on the SilverQuest banner, get all the information you want. One last thing I want to say is this is not investment advice. Peter and I are talking about a company that we have a significant interest in. So as Bob Moriarty says, we are highly prejudiced. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, guys.